So in pre-colonial literature, riddle is the most seminal of these folk speeches. Riddle is Igbog in Cebuano, Bugtong in Tagalog, Paktakon in Ilonggo, and Patotodon in Bicol. So it's a common folk speech from different regions, given with different names. Central to the riddle is the talinghaga, or the metaphor. Metaphor, if we define it, is a comparison of two unlike things, or unlike objects. Yet we draw similarity from these two unlike things. And so, central to the riddle is the talinghaga, because that is where the challenge is. We are supposed to answer or guess what is that object that is being compared to another. So, di ba, doon naman ay dili hari, dili pari, dunay corona sa ulo. Unsa man? Bayabas. So there was one student who asked, does a priest have a crown? No, aginguman dili hari, dili pari, apan dunay corona sa ulo. Does a priest have a crown? If you look at when there's a high mass celebrated by our bishop or the cardinal, he wears a crown. And if you can see the Orthodox priests, they also wear crowns. Like it's something they put on their head. The bishops have diminished the height of the crown by just placing a cap on the head. So before, old churches, the priests wore crowns, something that we no longer see today, because our priests are somehow they clothe themselves close to the lay people. They remove too many ornaments, except the habit. So here, why the talinghaga, the metaphor is central to the riddle, because it reveals resemblances of two unlike objects, and it challenges one's power of observation and wit, which would lead us to the right guess. Another form of pre-colonial literature are the proverbs or aphorisms, which express norms or codes of behavior, community beliefs or values, by offering nuggets of wisdom in short, rhyming verse. So many of these proverbs, aphorisms, even the Tanaga, were written down by Jose Rizal. We remember most of these because of Rizal. Like, ang hindi marunong magmahal sa sariling wika ay higit pa sa malansang isda. So the form is close to the aphorism, although we can see that it can be interpreted with Filipinos' colonial mentality. High regard on something that is foreign, especially owned by a more powerful nation. Ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. So the extended form of the proverb is the Tanaga, a monorhyming heptasyllabic quatrain. What does this mean? Okay, monorhyming, one sound. I mean one end sound, common until the end. Heptasyllabic, hepta is 7 syllables in a line. 7 syllables in a line, and when we say it's quatrain, how many lines in the stanza? 4 lines in the stanza. So if you look at the sample there, you have the wika isda. That is an example of monorhyming. One end sound at the end of the line all throughout the verses. So although if you only have two mono-rhyming lines, we call that a couplet. I hope we can, people at the back, couplet, it's couple, no? C-O-U-P-L-E-T. It's a couplet, C-O-U-P-L-E-T. If you have a pair, of mono-rhyming lines. No? So here in the sample, we have here a couplet. Wika, isda. We have pinanggalingan, paruroonan. The AN, ending sound. So the extended form, we have there the Tanaga, has affinities with folk lyric. Why it has affinities with folk lyric? Because it can be sung. So the lines, the verses can be sung. Like the Basahanon or extended didactic saying from Bukidnon, and the Darayda and the Ragilon from Panay. If some of you are close to your grandparents, perhaps some of you are familiar of that old song, no? Folk song, Garbusong Bukid. So that is an example of a Tanaga. A Tanaga, an extended form, folk lyric, it can be sung because of the regularity of the beat, of the rhyme pattern. And there is didactic, and the didactic nature of the song is very evident. Folk song is a folk lyric that expresses hopes and aspirations, lifestyles and loves of the people. An example of this is Ida Ida of the Maguindanao. Another is Tulang Pambata of Tagalog and Canciones para Abing of the Ibanao. Do not be surprised that some words here have Hispanic spelling. Spelling is Hispanic, like canciones. We have to remember that most of these were spoken. They were not written down. But when people learned to write, when the Spaniards came, so they started writing down our oral literature. So when we see them, the original scripts, as written by Hispanic educated Filipinos, they follow the Hispanic spelling. So what are these folk songs? We have the lullabies, or Ili Ili, no? Ili Ili Turuganay, wala diri. So that's a very popular lullaby song of the Ilonggo. Number 2, we have love songs like Panawagon and Balitaw, still of the Ilonggo. So Balitaw is also evident in Luzon. Harana or serenade of the Cebuanos. Bayok of the Maranao. Ambahan, a 7-syllable per line poem. Also, that is heptasyllabic still, no? Of the Mangyans, which speaks of human relationships and a tool for teaching the young. Work songs, which depict the livelihood of people, like the Kalusan of the Ibatan, which is a work song that is sung to go with the movement of workers. In some of the old movies, where characters would shift from talking to singing, have you noticed that? No? So there are some communal work that is accompanied by singing. That is very that is a very example of a work song, which is done in Kalusan. Suliranin, a Tagalog rowing song, and the Mambayu, a Kalinga rice pounding song. And the very popular one is Magtanim ay Bibiro. Okay. Although when you teach your children to sing Magtanim ay Bibiro, please refrain from teaching them the English version. Because in the English version, it does not appreciate much the work of a farmer. When you planting rice is never fun, no? Never fun. Okay? Whereas the original is Magtanim ay Bibiro. You say it is hard work. No? So lahi, it creates a different impression. So when you teach Magtanim ay Bibiro, especially grade 1, grade 2, no? So best to teach it using the original lyrics, not the English version. Sabi nga na like, ay, boring. Ay, farming, boring. Diba? Terms and mga tanong mo. Number 7, drinking songs. Sung during, sorry for that, it's sung, S-U-N-G, during carousels like Tagay, Il Cebuano, and Waray. No? Tansoy, inutuba lalo eh. So you have there, that's the Tagay song. That is also one of those folk songs we had before. And like in Europe, we had our folk narratives, the epic. Now, if we define an epic, it's a story in verse. No? It's a poem that tells a story. Like Beowulf, the Iliad, diba? These are all epics. Mahabharata, long poems. What is the longest poem, Dani?
Mahabharata.
The longest epic is the Mahabharata, right? So you have there the epics, which were also labeled as ethno-epics. Now our epics in the Philippines is ethno-epics because they are varied. They do not speak one common story of one nation. Unlike the Nibelungenlied of Germany, if you look at the epic Nibelungenlied, it really speaks of the epics of the German people, one nation. But ours is different. No? In Panay, Borneo, it speaks of how Panay evolved to become 3 different, regions after the coming of we have the 9 Bornean Datus, right? And then if you go to Luzon, they have also a different epic of creation. You know? So it's ethno-epic because they are varied. Each region had its own story on the beginning of how their land came about. So the examples of Philippine epics, we have Lam-ang of the Ilocano, Hinilawud of Sulud, Kulaman of Palawan, Darangan of Maranao, Ulahingan of Manobo still, and then you have Agtubig ni Keboglagan of the Subanon and the Tulpulul. Of these, however, it's Lam-ang that is most popular among the kids because it is included in the textbook, right? The school textbook. Although Pedro Bucanig, the latest, the Filipino, who wrote the oldest version of Lam-ang. Okay, Lam-ang was told as an oral. It's an oral verse. It's an epic that is narrated orally. Pedro Bucanig wrote it down. Have you heard of his name? Pedro Bucanig? Yeah, right? So B-U-C-A-N-E-G, Bucanig. He was the one who wrote it down. And there are some complaints, that there were some objections because a number of there are a lot of portions in the narratives which are reflective of our Spanish, influence. For example, Doña Inés. So he used some titles that were Spanish. And there were also some, mga archetypes. Mga symbols which imply Christianity, like the cleansing using water. So there was a portion in the story of Pinagbiag ni Lam-ang where Lam-ang, tried to avenge the death of his parents. And so he killed 1,000 of tribes. And after killing all of them, he bathed into the river. So the guilt there was somehow assuaged by cleansing himself into the water. And what happened? All the marine species in that river died. So, and then after bathing, he felt anew. He felt probably born. So water is an archetype. It's symbolism of cleansing, both physical and spiritual cleansing. And that is introduced to us by the West, especially the Christian tradition. Now, after the pre-colonial, verses and narratives we had, of course, Spaniards came, and it brought a lot of changes in our genres, in our literary genres. How many literary major genres are there in literature? We had poetry, fiction, which are of two kinds, the novel and the short story. We have drama and the essay. So literary genres or literary forms. Poetry, we have poetry, fiction. Ang non-fiction dahil, essays are non-fiction. We have fiction, drama, and essay. And then the oldest of the four forms of literature is poetry. Yes, poetry is the oldest form. Because oral literature were actually spoken in verses. Balak, they were spoken in a form of balak or poem. One very important contribution of the Spaniards when they came here is the theater. They used the theater especially in proselytization or in spreading Christianity. For example, one theatrical form is the comedia or moro-moro. The comedia or moro-moro. So, common plot is you have either a Christian prince falling in love with a Muslim princess, or a Muslim prince falling in love with a Christian princess. Because of conflict in religion, the families will always fight, and the end will always be the marriage of the two lovers with the Muslim prince or princess converted to Christianity. So they use that to spread Christianity or proselytization. Second is the zarzuela. A zarzuela is the long, melodramatic stage play. Now, melodrama. When you say melodrama, grabe nga, there's intense emotion that is created in the audience. Ona, maldita good. So the audience will really get angry with the antagonist. Whereas, ang protagonist, dapat the antagonist has to win the sympathy of the audience. Protagonist. That is the very nature of melodrama. And that has been carried on even until now in our teleserye. So, zarzuela, and you have the sinaculo, which is religious in nature because it stages the life of Jesus Christ, especially His passion and His resurrection. Now we have to remember also that when the Spaniards came, they introduced to us the print media, no? The printing press. Okay, so before, they only used pen, no? And ink to write things down, and they cannot produce massive copies of printed materials. But they need such, especially in reproducing copies of the Bible and books on Christian books. So the first book that was published in the country was Doctrina Cristiana. And then there were also religious lyrics written by Ladino poets. When we say Ladino poets, those poets who can write in Tagalog and in Spanish. So, if they have a Spanish title, such will always be accompanied by the Tagalog version. So, what are these? We have the Salamat ng Walang Hangga or Gracias de Sin Eternas by Fernando Bagulbanta, found in Memorial de la Vida Cristiana in Lengua Tagalog, or the guidelines for the Christian life in the Tagalog language. We also have the Dalit, which is appended to the novenas and catechisms. It has no fixed meter, nor rhyme scale, but they were mostly written in octosyllabic quatrains. So octosyllabic, we have 8 syllables in every line, and we have 4 lines in every stanza. Then the Passion. Passion is recited. The difference, Passion is recited, Sinaculo is dramatization. So So Pasyon, written in octosyllabic quintillas. How many lines? Quintillas. 5 lines. No? So we have here 8 syllables in a line, 5 lines in a stanza. So octosyllabic quintillas. To commemorate Christ's agony and resurrection. Example is ang mahal na pasyon ni Jesucristong Panginoon natin na tula by Gaspar Aquino de Belen in 1704. It is the country's earliest known passion. For prose narratives, which prescribe proper decorum, there were the dialogos or the dialogues. You have the Manual de Urbanidad, Conduct Book, and Ejemplo, as well as Tratado. In Manual de Urbanidad, the Conduct Book, we have here the inclusion of some verses of Urbana at Felisa. Pagsusulatan ng dalawang Pilipini na si Urbana at Felisa in 1864 by Modesto de Castro. So it's not written there, no? Si Modesto de Castro. So Urbana at Felisa by Modesto de Castro. So it is an epistolary novel. So it's classified as epistolary novel. Why epistolary? From the word epistle, which means correspondence or letters. Right? So you have epistolary novel. The story of the two sisters was unfolded through their correspondence. So Urbana and Felisa, we have two sisters representing two areas in the Philippines that define the ways and the lives of women. Urbana is city, Felisa is from the rural area. N.P.M. Gonzalez, you know N.P.M. Gonzalez, no? N.P.M. Gonzalez, one of our outstanding writers in English, said that the Philippines during his time were made up of 3 countries. The country of the city, the country of the mountain, and the country of the rural area or the province. So that if a Filipino from the mountain would go to the city, he will experience a culture shock during that time. If you have seen the early movies of Dolphy, the comical situation of Dolphy would always illustrate that cultural adjustment. Bukid, Dagbayong, go to the city, So that's a culture shock. Same is true with a city person who would go to the mountain. Culture shock po siya, kaya you might be looking for some shower. Although right now in your generation, such is no longer true. Because of what? Because of communication, no? Everyone has a cell phone, even the habal-habal driver has a cell phone. And so, there is a wider stretch of urbanization. When I was in high school, ang telephone line, kutob sa PLDT, kutob lang na sa Talisay. When I was in high school, that's around 1981 to 1985. So, wala pa na yung telephone line beyond. So if you would call long distance. But now, it's so different, right? So that's how it was. So, in Modesto de Castro's Pagsusulatan sa Dalawang Pilipini, there, the conduct of 2 women, as dictated by Spanish Christian notion, is defined. Of course, they would always advocate for the reserved nature of the rural maiden compared to the city girl. Joaquin Toison, Ang Bagong Robinson, in 1879, which is an adaptation of Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Does this ring a bell, si Robinson Crusoe? Robinson Crusoe is also considered as the first English novel. the first English novel. Although some would say it's a precursor to the English novel. So, Robinson Crusoe. When we say a precursor, it's not yet the very real English novel yet, but it started off. The English novel that was then written in England, in America. Now the secular works. I just would like to point this out because I could remember that in high school or college, Jose Corazon de Jesus has been associated with the pen name Jose Cicero. But in my latest readings, I tried to look for materials. Jose Corazon de Jesus is already Jose Batute. And his popular work is Bayan Po. He was born between the late 1800s and the American period, early American period. Whereas Jose de la Cruz is the real Jose Cicero, who was born during the early period of the Spanish regime. And he is labeled as the Hari ng mga Makata during the Spanish regime. He was said to be the mentor of Francisco Balagtas, later known as the father of Tagalog literature in poetry. Now, I don't know, because our reference before was Teofilo del Castillo's Philippine literature from ancient to modern times. So, maybe some historical diggings try to correct that. I even tried to consult Google. Google ba? Gusto nila, first man dyan ako si Cicero. Gusto ko na sa Jesus kung hindi sa pagkalawin siya. So, probably there are some verifications done in history. So, there were 3 poets prominent for the use of the corrido. We have Jose de la Cruz, Francisco Balagtas, and Ananias Uribe. Of course, we know why the Jose Cicero was given as an alias, right? Because this Jose Cicero was hired to write love poems. And as a form of payment, they would give Cicero. The person hiring the Makata, the poet, would give Cicero as a payment. So he's called Jose Cicero. So what were the popular works of Jose Cicero? And Clarita, Adela at Florante. We know Adela at Florante. There's important characters in Florante and Laura, right? And we have Historia Famosa ni Bernardo Carpio. There were other secular poets. We have Leona Florentino. Leona Florentino is considered as an important poet among the feminists. Now, her name emerged strongly among the circle of women writers, especially in 1990. In Cebu, we had our own. Si Cleopatra Quijano. Not sure. She's a known poet among the Cebuano Visayan women. Cleopatra Quijano. Sa mga Bisaya. Cleopatra, Gardeo, G-A-R-D-E-O-P-A-T-R-A. Quijano, of course, we know Quijano, no? Cleopatra Quijano. So she She's the woman, the Cebuano Visayan counterpart of Leona Florentino. So aside from Leona Florentino, we have Jacinto Kawili, Isabelo de los Reyes. The awit and corrido were important forms of literature during the Spanish regime. An awit is the awit is a secular poetry, a metrical romance set in dodecasyllabic quatrains. Dodecasyllabic, how many syllables in a line? 12 syllables in a line. Dodecasyllabic. Quatrains, 4 lines in a stanza. An example of a very popular awit is Florante at Laura. By Francisco Balagtas or Francisco Baltazar. Corrido is another secular poetry, a metrical romance still, but the versification is different from the awit. No? It's octosyllabic quatrain. Example of this is Gonzalo de Cordova and Ibong Adarna. Now, Ibong Adarna is more popular because it has been made into a movie. Between the writings of lay people, secular writings, and after some publications of religious writings, came the nationalistic or patriotic writings, especially with the emerging movements of KKK and the establishment of the propaganda movement in Barcelona, Spain. We know that the propaganda movement is created by Filipinos, but they are stationed in Spain, no? Mga ilustrados ng Pinoy. And the significant paper of the propaganda movement is the La Solidaridad, the paper of the propaganda movement. And we know that the propaganda movement is trying to express Filipinos' objection against the subjugation of the Spaniards in the Philippines, because they were very, very friendly to the Spaniards in Madrid, in Barcelona. So, in fact, if you go to Spain, if you've gone to Spain, there is a certain area or certain street named as Philippine Street. Kunya na po ito'y replica sa kaning Luneta. We have the Rizal's statue there. So that's how they regarded, they put high regard on our hero, si Jose Rizal. This propaganda movement produced a number of writings. Although we only mentioned here Jose Rizal's Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo and Mi Ultimo Adios. Another important work is Walang Sugat or No Wounds, written by Severino Reyes. Severino Reyes is the father of the Tagalog Zarzuela. Although he used this dramatic form introduced by the Spaniards in order to express protest or objection to the Spanish regime. The play focused on the Philippine Revolution and the trials, tribulations, and bravery of the Filipino Revolutionary Army. That's Walang Sugat by Reyes. Reyes, in the later period, he co-founded Liwayway. With the Liwayway magazine, we are familiar with that. And made popular his writings, mga kwento ni Lola Basiang. He created his own traveling performance company, Gran Compañía de Zarzuela Tagalog. So the Liwayway magazine incorporated has already expanded their magazines. Dili lang kay Liwayway, which is the Tagalog version. There is the Bisaya for Cebuano speaking, Cebuano Visayan speaking. And there is also Banawag, sa mga Ilocano. So let's move on to, alright, there's one thing here that Ninay by Pedro Paterno a cultural novel, was the first Filipino novel in the country. That was done during, that was published during the Spanish regime. So, in the midst of the patriotic writings, there is that apolitical or non-political writing, Ninay, which became the first Philippine novel, or Tagalog novel to be particular. No? Tagalog novel, or we call that Filipino. So we just remember, the first book that was published is Doctrina Cristiana. The first Filipino novel is Ninay. Right? So. Now let's move on to the American colonial period. We know that in 1900s, when the Americans bought the Philippines from the Spaniards, right? Before 1900s. By 1900s, they established the public schools. And like the Spaniards, who somehow delimit the teaching of their language to Filipinos, the Americans forced Filipino children to go to school and learn their language and read their books. So that's the difference in the manner by which the Americans and the Spaniards tried to influence the Filipinos person. Of course, the Spaniards used the religion as a tool too, no? With that, there was a flourishing of writings in English. There was even one who asked whether Philippine literature in English, Philippine literature or English literature. There was a question ba? Are writings in English done by Filipinos Philippine writings or English writings? Filipino writings, because the heart and mind that speak in that word belong to a Filipino. So they are Philippine writings, but they are done in English. First important name is Jose Garcia Villa, who used free verse and espoused the dictum, arts for art's sake. Arts for art's sake. What does it mean? In Ars Poetica by Archibald MacLeish, Ars Poetica. There are two versions of Ars Poetica. The English majors know this. Ars Poetica. The classical version is written by Horace. We know Horace. 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 No, a Roman writer. Okay, so, paano ba niya siya? Dugay na kayo ng pre-colonial, classical age. Classical age in the Greek-Roman literature. Ars Poetica. And then later on, in England, there is a version of MacLeish. Archibald MacLeish. M-C-L-E-I-S-H. Archibald MacLeish. Where he said, he ended his poetry, his Ars Poetica, with a line, a poem must not mean but be. A poem must not mean but be. But be. A poem must not mean but be. That's the version of Archibald MacLeish. in his Ars Poetica. Which means that poetry does not necessarily give meaning or instruction. It must just be taken as it is. Diba? Kay be is. Giver is. Take it as it is. You may not be able to fathom the depth of the meaning of the poem, but still you can feel the beauty of it. You experience the beauty of it, which is the very nature of art. That is the advocacy of Jose Garcia Villa. Because Jose Garcia Villa is also known for his comma poems. Comma ba? Anong punctuation mark? No? There are a number of commas in his poetry. Not all of his sonnets, though. He wrote in sonnets, man. Not all of his sonnets, though. But he's known for his comma poems. And when you ask him why, take it as it is. I don't have to explain it. So just like an abstract painting, diba? You cannot exactly decipher the specific shapes and colors, but you just feel the experience of the doer of such artwork. So that's art for art's sake. Angela Manalang Gloria used free verse and talked about illicit love in her poetry. She's also labeled as a poet too advanced of her time because of the kind of themes and, say, aggressive nature in her work. Aurelio Tolentino wrote seditious plays like Kahapon, Ngayon, at Bukas. There are some movies with the title Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, but they're too different from the work of Aurelio Tolentino. Just to show you a little excerpt of Kahapon, Ngayon, at Bukas. So you have there, ang kahapon, ngayon, at bukas ay nagpapakita ng di pagsang-ayon ng pagpapalawak ng kapangyarihan na pinamumunuan ng isang bansa sa loob at labas ng kanyang teritoryo at nakapokus ang tagumpay ni Inang Bayan laban sa mga nangliliit sa kanya. Kasama na dito si Asal Hayop na nakipagsabwatan kay Haring Bata upang ipagbigay alam na sila taga-ilog ay may balak babakahin si Haring Bata. Right? Notice that the characters are very symbolic. This is an example of an allegory. Now, we've heard of the term allegory, right? A-L-L-E-G-O-R-Y, allegory. So, the drama, Kahapon, Ngayon, at Bukas is a drama, no? It's a stage play. Use allegorical characters, hoping perhaps that they will not take it literally against the American regime at the time, no? Because this is already during the American occupation. What Aurelio Tolentino was telling the Filipinos is that we have one colonizer leaving us, but there's another coming in. And trying to imply, should we allow another? And he used Tagalog, or the Filipino language, in opposition, in objection to the new language that is taught to the Filipinos, that is the English language. And he was not alone in this struggle, no? Because in 1900, there was that medium of instruction, no? That was given, no, as a mandatory to all Philippine schools. In 1901, in Cebu, Vicente Soto also founded a Cebuano newspaper, Ang Suga. Ang Suga, in 1901, was founded by Vicente Soto in order to counter the movement to use English as the medium of instruction and communication. We have Alejandro G. Abadilla, who advocated for modernism in poetry. Paz Marquez Benitez, who wrote Dead Stars, the first successful short story in English written by a Filipino. We have Arturo B. Rodor, who wrote The Wound and the Scar, the initial publication of the Philippine Book Guild. Arturo Rodor was a student of Paz Marquez Benitez. And when he joined Philippine Book Guild, and the Philippine Book Guild was established, the initial publication, the first publication of the Guild, was The Wound and the Scar of Rodor. His best work was Confidentially Doctored, published in 1965. Another important writer is Bienvenido Santos. He's another student of Paz Marquez Benitez, whose work Scent of Apples won him American Book Award in 1918. Now, Bienvenido Santos is known for his stories that depicted the lives of Filipinos in exile. To say Filipinos in exile, Filipinos living in the United States. So we have one Scent of Apples. We also had Even Purple Hearts. Even Purple Hearts. Although his novel Villa Magdalena, spoke of the local, the experience of a Filipino in a corrupt regime, corrupt nature of a regime. Once you're in power, you get corrupted. So that's, you have Villa Magdalena there. You have Salvador Lopez wrote an essay, Literature and Society, which won him the Commonwealth Literary Award in 1940. And F.B. Bokikosa had an adaptation of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan. So, imitation was a very common attempt of Filipinos. No, it's a very common channel for Filipinos to produce writings in English. And so adaptation is one form. And he also wrote Ang Palad ni Pepe, which is after David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. And I think you know Carlos Romulo, very popular Carlos Romulo, who can speak of what it was before the Japanese War and after. So he wrote, I Am a Filipino, I Walk with Heroes, which was his autobiography. He became a United Nations ambassador. No? Then we have Jorge Bocobo, who wrote an essay on college and education. Jorge Bocobo is one of the university presidents, the earlier batch of presidents of University of the Philippines. Then here we have just an outline of how English literature in English flourished during the American period. You have here in 1900 we have the official medium in instruction English. 1901, Ang Sugat, the first Cebuano newspaper of Vicente Soto, was published. In 1905, the Philippine Free Press was founded. And this is a very significant paper because it continued its publication even until the contemporary time. It only stopped when it was closed during martial law. And you have 1910, the College Folio is the official publication of UP. In 1920, we have the Philippine Herald started its publication. And in 1921, the Filipino novel in English, A Child of Sorrow, was written by Zoilo Gala. So that's the Filipino novel in English, the first Filipino novel in English. Although the first successful short story in English was written by the first successful short story in English was written by Paz Marquez Benitez, Dead Stars. But we say the first Filipino Example in English, we have A Child of Sorrow by Zoe Lugala. So, but Nina is the first Filipino novel in, Tagalog or Filipino. Then 1924, you have the magazines. Philippine Education Magazine started its publication. 1936, the Philippine Book Guild was organized. 1940, the first Commonwealth Literary Awards were given. In 1950, the Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature were created, and the National Artist Award given by the government. Why are they important, getting awards? Because they are the ones who motivated writers to produce good works. And in fact, Jose Garcia Villa, Santos were not only recognized in the Philippines, but also in the U.S. So what were these award-winning Philippine literary materials, which you can view, no? Sa plot summary lang, or short analysis for the themes in case, because in left, especially for the majors, they will only ask the theme of the work of Rodor, no? So what is the title of the work? Well, that's the very challenging part for the majors of the English majors. So it's best to look into view quickly or some notes on the plot and the theme of these works. Guardia de Honor by Nicoquet, The Virgin by Quirino Pulitan Tubera, The Heritage by Edelberto Tiempo, The Living and the Dead by Brillantes, Distance to Andromeda by author, check on that. The Chambers of the Sea, I think Brillantes and Distance to Andromeda. You have there The Chambers of the Sea by Edith Tiempo. The Day the Dancers Came by Santos, Leper by Renato Madrid, Island by Resel Momares. Sorry for that, but you can check on the Google now. Okay, let's proceed to literatures of the world. Now, literatures of the world, it is still with a plural S because it tries to approach now the different countries, tries to deviate from the Greek orientation, the Western orientation. Before, the study of world literature is from the Greeks to the Romans to England to America. But now, in our syllabus, we also try to look into the writings in Singapore, in Malaysia, in some other countries, especially in Asia. But again, if you look at the classics of world literature, these are those that have been identified through time. So we just cannot escape from looking into the classics from the Greeks, the Romans, and some classics in Europe. So that's how it goes here in our notes. So for the Greek literature, when we look into the writers, Homer becomes very prominent. Why? Because he wrote the two epics, two great epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad tells the story of the Trojan War, where you have Hector, Achilles, and the wooden horse strategy. While the Odyssey speaks of the journey of Odysseus or Ulysses, no? And these stories have been filmed, di ba karon i-revive siya, it made into a movie. So, these works viewed life as a heroic enterprise. So we get amazed by the great adventures hurdled by the characters. Like Lam-Am, they were also considered as epics. The only difference here is that in the Iliad, the central hero is Hector, ang central hero. But if you look at the oral tradition, the oral form, which is the Trojan War, we see quite a number of heroes. So, tanaw na to ang Trojan War, it starts with the conflict started in Mount Olympus, no? The gods were Ares, no? The goddess of discord, threw a golden apple with the inscription to the fairest. So, yung gilabay. Why did she do that? It's really to create a conflict. Oh, she was not invited to the banquet, to the wedding banquet. And so, she created a conflict. So the ilog, until tulo na lang nakabilin, the goddesses, the very powerful goddesses. Who were these? Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. So even Odysseus was scared to choose whom to give the apple. And so he used Paris. Si Alexander, ang iyang Roman name. He used Paris to choose sa atong tulo. And so the goddesses tried to bribe Paris. Aphrodite offered the most beautiful woman, the fairest of all. And we have Hera promised her the kingdoms in Europe and Asia. While Athena is victory in war, victory of all war. And so, of the three, Paris chose Aphrodite's offer to give him the most beautiful woman. And with that, you can already tell what kind of person Paris was, right? Okay, story aram ko ito, no? These though not interpreted in the story. It's the movie who interpreted it katong Troy on the movie, where they really characterized Paris as a stupid brother of Hector. No, the Iliad is Hector because it opened with Hector. In the Iliad, it did not open with Mount Olympus. It started with Hector trying to decide whether to accept the challenge of Achilles on a one-on-one fight. Now, in the Iliad, we see the fall of a great man. Ang my favorite theme of the Greeks, the fall of a great man, a tragedy ba? You notice that Hector was a good person, but his fate tells him that he will die in a great war. So it happened. So he accepted the challenge and he died. Pareho na siya sa Oedipus Tyrannus itaw. Oedipus Tyrannus, he was also a great man, but he was destined to kill his father and marry his mother. So he could not escape fate. So we have here different characters, no? And we have Dugay mo kita mahuman ani kung ato din tagsa-tagsa sila. So ito mo na lang yung basa ani ilang respective grades, no? Zeus, sa ato na lang sa majors, go into details. Another important writer, you have Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus. The Greek playwrights for tragedy. Example is Oedipus Tyrannus. I just want to point out, it was mentioned a while ago naman. There are two major forms of a drama now in the classical period. We have the comedy and the tragedy. Comedy is not the same as comical. No? In our lingo now, we say, comedy kaayo ay when we mean comical, katawanan, the action, the faces, no? We have comic people. So they're like farce. No? If we look into the terms in theater, worship farce, that the movements, we have situations have to evoke laughter among the audience, not from the audience. Comedy is a play where the main character, no, or the central hero would always be victorious at the end. So there is always a happy ending. Probably at the start, you will find a lot of obstacles. He will be suppressed, he will be deprived of many things. But because of some fortune, his goodness especially would lead him to victory. to read. This is opposite to the tragedy. The tragedy is you have the central character who will have a tragic ending at the end. Though he may be a good person. So we mentioned about Hector, no, and Oedipus Tyrannus. The example that I gave here, we have Oedipus Tyrannus. Alam mo, Oedipus complex, no, from where the term is derived. No? Just a quick glance on Oedipus Tyrannus. No? There was that oracle, nga moto, he will kill his father, marry his mother. So when the father learned about it, he was just an infant child, he was banished. No? Papatay siya. But the servant who was charged to kill the child pitied on the child, so he'd rather give it to a moral kanangkuan, nangagi, no, so to a couple who can take charge of him. No? Maybe some versions there we have the shepherds. Some versions were given to, he was sold actually to a good couple. And when he became a young man, a grown-up man, consulted the oracle, Oedipus learned about his fate, that he will kill his father and marry his mother. So what happened to evade, no, or to escape from such fate? He left his parents, went away, and in the crossroads, in a journey, he met a group of hunters, no, had an argument with them, fought against them, and killed the leader of the group. After that, he went on, agpo siya sa the river of the Sphinx. You cannot cross the river of the Sphinx unless you are able to guess the riddle. No? Ang riddle ato is, what is it? That walk on 4 feet sa buntag, 2 feet sa noon, and 3 sa evening. No? Sa man siya. Oh man, no? Answer. He was the only one who guessed that, and so he saved his life and all the people who would cross the river. And as a reward, he was given the kingdom of Thebes and the widowed queen. And he never realized that the man whom he killed, the leader whom he killed, was his father, and the queen, the widowed queen, was his mother. He only learned that after their marriage with the queen, when a lot of people of the kingdom of Thebes died for no reason. So he called the blind seer, see, Tiresias, no, and asked Tiresias, what's happening? And so Tiresias told him that the oracle has been fulfilled. And as a punishment, what did he do?
Blinded.
He banished himself, disgorged his eyes, no, yan niyang mata, and lived a hermit's life. So the tragedy of the Greeks is that fate is predestined. No matter how good or evil you are, your fate is that. Lahi siya sa kang Shakespeare. Because in Shakespeare's tragedy, Shakespeare has to create a tragic flaw. Diba nakano tayo mga flawless? No? Flaw is an imperfection. There has to be an imperfect trait, a tragic flaw in the character that would bring him to his fall down. Like Macbeth. No? Macbeth's tragic flaw was his ambition. Hamlet is, say, tragic flaw ni Hamlet? Revenge. Yan, no? And in Romeo and Juliet, ang ilahang di mo na, perfect man ang love. No? Love is not a tragic flaw, but it was their compulsion. Kay bata pa mga sila. Poor judgment because of their compulsive nature. No? Juliet was only 13, turning 14 at the time when they met. Romeo was just a year older. So they were very, very young when they fell in love. And they were very compulsive. So kung gani, what if? Ibot tayo sa sword. Away, no? Because of Tibalt also. No? Tibalt. One of the antagonists. Anyway, that is the nature of the plays written by Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus. Those were how the plays were written by Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus. These were three Greek writers who wrote tragedies. Aristophanes wrote comedy. His popular work is Lysistrata. The central character in Lysistrata is a woman. Honestly, Lysistrata. Comedy siya, pero medyo some words were quite vulgar. Okay. Anyway. Number 4, we have Sappho, the Greek poet who wrote lyric poems. And so the term Sapphic poetry. Roman literature is generally employed to designate a portion of Latin literature. So, we know that Rome invaded Greece, colonized Greece. However, the Greeks were educated, so they became tutors of the Romans, the children of Roman monarchs. As a consequence, the Roman people were educated by the literature of the Greeks, the philosophy of the Greeks. So the irony of colonization in Greece. So Rome colonized Greece politically, but the Greeks colonized, invaded the minds and hearts of the Romans. That's why their mythology were very, very closely affiliated with the Greeks. In fact, ang mga names, di ba, ilisan lang, no? But Aeneid is really an offshoot of Greek education. Aeneid has written by Virgil, has a central character in Aeneas who was a Trojan warrior. In fact, in some versions, he was a Trojan prince. He was destined to discover Hesperia, the old name of Italy. Hesperia. Hesperia. Anyway, in the sample test, you will encounter these names, these terms. Hesperia, the old name of Italy. Aeneas, the central character of Aeneid, was destined to discover the land Hesperia. In Hesperia, there is the territory ng Alba Longa where he grew his kids. Kunya, ang iyang grandchildren, si Remus and Romulus. Ang grandchildren reach a point of rivalry regarding the ownership of the territory. And so, in the course of that rivalry, they fought, and Romulus killed Remus. So Romulus then founded the place Rome, where you have the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, the seat of Roman Empire was established. You have Cicero, Marcus Tullius Cicero, Rome's most famous orator and a revered Roman statesman. St. Augustine wrote Confessions, life story of the author's conversion and the city of God, first Christian philosophy and history, the city of God. You know St. Augustine, right? Sinner converted to Christianity. In France, we have the Song of Roland, the national epic of France. See, Roland was a trusted warrior of King Charlemagne. Just like King Arthur, with the toppling down, the toppled down of the knights of the table round, of the round table. After that was also the death of King Arthur. So with King Charlemagne, with the death of Roland and what was this? The 12 paladins. He lost the loyalty of the 12 paladins. So Charlemagne was also toppled down. He was killed. Next, we have Francis Rabelais, the first representative French writer after the close of the Middle Ages. Then Michel de Montaigne. He was the one who created the literary form essay. Now, when he wrote the word essays, And Francis Bacon just gave it an English version. So Michel de Montaigne was the originator of the essay. Alexander Dumas was known for his romances like The Count of Monte Cristo. Then we have Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote. In Italy, we have Marco Polo, who wrote The Travels of Marco Polo, and Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. One thing with Divine Comedy, there is his description of the Purgatory Inferno, which description niya, he borrowed from the Greek chaos. In Germany, we have Johann Wolfgang Goethe's Faustus, which was the German version of Christopher Marlowe's The Tragedy of Dr. Faustus. You're familiar of Dr. Faustus?
Yes.
No? You've heard of him, right? So he sold his soul in exchange of his desires, his ambition. And then we have Jacob Grimm and Wilhelm Grimm for the Grimm's fairy tale. We know Martin Luther wrote his thesis, right, on the door of the church. Now he was the leader of the Protestant Reformation movement in Germany. Schopenhauer, a distinguished philosopher and essayist, who wrote The World as Will and Idea. And he influenced authors like Nietzsche. In Russia, we have Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. Here I only wrote here Gooseberries, but he's known for his novel, The Brothers Karamazov. So the Brothers Karamazov speak of three brothers. No? Karamazov, Z-O-V. So the title, the complete title of Chekhov's novel is Brothers Karamazov. He speaks of three brothers. Their differing ideas about the world. And the challenges they met with the aging father. Leo Tolstoy is a romanticist whose popular works include Anna Karenina, War and Peace. In Scandinavia, we have Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote The Emperor's New Clothes. And he gained recognition from the government of Denmark. And you can see his statue, like the top of Rizal, can be seen on one of the tourist destinations. Strindberg, August Strindberg, was the author of Half a Sheet of Paper. So you have there the title, Half a Sheet of Paper. In the Orient, we have Khalil Gibran, right? A Lebanese-born mystical poet and philosopher who wrote The Prophet. And Tagore, an Indian author who was awarded Nobel Prize in 1913 for his work, Gitanjali. And excerpts from this Gitanjali are seen in a number of textbooks in high school. Kalidasa was the greatest Sanskrit writer in India. He wrote Look to This Day, and he influenced a number of notions especially among the West, that of today, of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the most important day is today. So that's the very core of his philosophy in Look to This Day. Confucius, or Kung Fu Tse, was known social philosophy and the Golden Rule. Remember the Golden Rule, no? Do not do unto others. Compared to Jesus Christ, do unto others, Jesus Christ. But the Kung Fu Tse is do not do. So that's the difference in the way the Golden Rule was stated. And then we have the Chinese classical poets Li Po, Kutsumi, Tu Fu, and Wang Wei. Of these four, now who's the most popular of the four? It's Lipon. Okay. These four poets produced works during the what dynasty of China? Now the golden age of literature. Tang, yeah, the Tang dynasty of China. Now the golden age of Chinese literature. Because of these four poets. Matsubasho polished the haiku as a separate poetic form. No, ikan gihapon ni siya sa tangka. Then tangka has 31 syllables, while haiku has 17 syllables. Then in English literature, we have Christopher Marlowe, The Passionate Shepherd to His Love. And then Francis Bacon, we have Of Studies. And then we have William Shakespeare, Blank Verse, Drama, and Sonnet. Although we have to know that Christopher Marlowe also used blank verse. A blank verse is an unrhymed iambic verse. He used iambs of Marlowe and Shakespeare. Used iambs, pero unrhymed siya. Say no rhyming pattern. And then we have Emily Dickinson, who is known for her imagism in her poetry. Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Little Portuguese, the wife of Robert Browning. Robert Browning wrote dramatic monologue, My Last Duchess. In America, there are a number of names, but we are only writing down Edgar Allan Poe, the father of American short story. Robert Frost is also known for his iambic pentameter poetry, although I think he also has iambic tetra. He's most known for his iambs. Matthew Arnold, British poet and literary critic. Okay, I placed this one because part of Gen Ed literature is also getting the themes or meanings of some verses. And so in poetry, it's very important that we are familiar of the underlying meaning in archetypes and symbols. So, what do we mean by archetypes? These are motifs, or simply symbols or images, which would impress on underlying meanings. Kanya siya meaning is not contained in one area, it's not localized. It has universal acceptance and meaning. For example, white, purity. No, but if you say spring, it's fresh. Right? So such connotation is true to all. In Japan, in America, in Philippines. So water, only siya ang archetypal meaning. No? I think very, very common is purification and life. Mystery of creation. Sun is creative energy, consciousness, passage of time, and life. Sun is also associated with truth. No? So you go close to the sun, close to truth. Colors, red is associated with blood, sacrifice, violent passion. Blue is truth, security, religious feeling. Green is warmth, sensation, fertility. While black is chaos, mystery, death, unknown evil. So notice, can we talk black? During weddings, you should not wear black. It is because of that archetypal meaning, motif that we associate it with color. So really yun yung tuo na malasod at mag-itong ka, but it's the meaning that we attach to it. Circle is whiteness, unity. Egg is mystery of life, forces of generation. There's a very reason also nga doon Easter egg during Easter Sunday, because Easter Sunday is new life. So, muna siya nga, naasal na siya egg. The Yankeean or the masculine feminine principle speaks of the complementary No? Ang Dayakian symbol, makita na nato, no? No? That round thing, that's round, and then dunay black, and dili ang white. No? Dayakian. So you have their compliments that in life there are always compliments. No? Guapa, dili guapa. Butan, dili butan. It's safer to say that. No? Gonna be called even existence is paired with non-existence. So in one discussion we had in literature, if existence is paired with non-existence, then ergo non-existence exists. No? So you have there, no? You have in serpent is evil, corruption, sensuality, destruction. For numbers, 3 is light and spiritual awareness. 4 is life circle, while 7 is perfect order. And when you say perfection, it's the Hebrew notion of 7 as a perfect number. It's because of that. Garden is paradise, innocence. Tree is life, consistence, rock. Desert is death, nihilism. I just remember in one sonnet written by Jose Garcia Villar, when he said the sonnet's first line was 17 times I rose creating a child. He used 17 times I rose creating a child. But primero mo ba sa bastos mo ni Jose Garcia Villar, no? But actually he was associating his child with his poetry. So how many sleepless nights? You say 17, you say he cannot count it. Perfect number ang 7, gamit na 17 lang yan. So 17 times I rose creating a child. That's how the number of sleepless nights he spent to create a perfect poem. Diba si Sonnet 1 of Jose Garcia Villar, first the poem was imagined. The musical is that we have some of those lines in the sample later on. Now, another important thing that we have to look into poetry is the versification. The kind of meters, I mentioned about iambs, tetrameter. So these are the different kinds of metrical feet. We have the iamb is a combination of unstressed, stressed syllable. Truncate is the opposite. We have stressed, unstressed syllable. Anapes is 2 unstressed and 1 stressed syllables. Dacty, 1 stressed, 2 unstressed. But then we have there we will just stick on the notes we have here. No? So doon na siya yung length of line. So for example, in the line, whose woods these are, I think I know from Frost. In poetry, doon na siya unstressed o stressed na combination. Diba? For example, English words are sonorous man. For example, let's say nation. Nation. Nay is stressed, full vowel production. Ang shun is, hindi mo i-emphasize ang full vowel production kay unstressed man na siya. So dito yung nation, no? The nation. Unlike Cebuano, nga puro stress ang atong syllables. Papa, mama, bahala, pareho lang yun siya. Hindi kami bahala. We don't say that. We emphasize each syllable. But in English word, do not emphasize, di kayo emphasize, di na yun mountain na lang. No? Okay, di naman nato ito ko. So, in the English words, therefore, is sonorous because there's stressed and unstressed, especially in poetry. So I would say, nation, poetry. So, inana ang style. So this affects the choice of words and versification in poetry. An iamb is a combination of unstressed, stressed syllable. So here, when we read the line, we say, whose woods these are, I think I know. So we have here a pair of ions. Whose is unstressed, stressed on woods. These are, I think, I know. You say, how would we know that such is stressed and the other is not? Huh? Okay, one guide, although it's not a very strict guide here, especially with early modern English, like Shakespeare, is that sa classification of this one, sorry for this, classification, I teach this sa English majors, but there I heard a feedback ng good na ako na yung mga 1 or 2 items gamay na kayo na where such is as itong kaning versification. So ako na lang i-include, no? So sorry for the non-English majors, but I think it might be helpful, no? Just in case. Ang words in English is like content of function words. The content words are the nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. These are the stressed words in a sentence. Oh, ang content words. Ano sila yung mga stress? So, especially if it's a one-syllable word, stress na siya sa sentence. But as I've said, when the poems are from early modern English like that of Shakespeare, the Renaissance, hindi siya pirmi, no? So, content words are nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and verbs. While the function words are those that are none of these. Although a pronoun, which can be a substitute of a noun, can also be given emphasis depending kung unsay tupad na word. So, if you say, to go, to is unstressed, go is stressed. Okay? So, that's how we identify stressing. We want to share guide. So in the line here in our sample, woods is stressed, right? Between these and R is stressed because it's a verb. And think is stressed because that's a verb. Know is stressed because that's a verb. So when you read it, woods is R, I think, I know. So it's a combination of unstressed, stressed syllable. Thus, you have an ayam. So to go, right? So how many ayams are there in the line? So if we are to, how many ayams are there? You have to go is one ayam. Saan na siya ka-ayam? And before is another ayam. So how many ayams do you have? You have 2 ayams in this line. To go before. You have 2 ayams. You can get, and what kind of versification is that? It's iambic dimeter. So dimeter kung duha ka-meter ang line. Yeah, so that's iambic dimeter. Now in our sample line here, whose woods is R, I think, I know. How many ions do we have? 4. Okay. So what is the versification? Iambic tetrameter. So that's iambic tetrameter. You have there 4 iams in a line. How many syllables are there? 8 syllables. Because 1 iam has 2 syllables. So if you have 4 iams, you have 8 syllables. So unsa iyang syllabication? Octosyllabic. What is the versification? Iambic tetrameter. Okay? Now we have the flowers to fade and wanton fields. This one thing that we have to be careful of, because flowers, we count it as 2 syllables. But during Raleigh's time, it sounded as 1 syllable. So they don't say flowers, but they say flowers. Also, here, you still have an ayam, no? The flowers to fade and wanton fields. You still have ayams. The flowers to fade and wanton fields. So you still have an ayam field that surrounds it. One of the shadow, if the poems are from very early English period, so some pronunciation will no longer be the same as now. Okay? English is a dynamic language. Even the grammar rules change through time. Okay. Figures of speech. Let's move on. There are some definitions here I got from a source, although we need to clarify it well, right? Metaphor. We have described metaphor as the comparison of 2 unlike things. Comparison of 2 unlike things. While simile is comparison of 2 unlike things using as blank as or like. Or yung diferensya niya. Without the as blank as and like, it's a metaphor. Right? So if you say, you are like an angel, that is simile. But if you say, you are an angel, that's a metaphor. Okay, that's the only difference between the two. Okay, 2 figures of speech. Allegory is a story where people, things are happening, have another meaning. Okay, an example of that I gave you was kahapon ngayon at bukas, where the story is a symbolic representation of what's actually happening. And the names can be allegorical too, although not all allegories would use symbolic meaning. Parable is an extended metaphor, to simplify it. It still compares, but in a form of a story. Gitawag siya extended metaphor because the metaphor takes place not only between lines, but within the message of the story. For example, the parable of the prodigal son. Asa man ang i-compare, ana? You have there, the prodigal son is compared to a sinner. But such comparison is still in a form of story. The father is also compared to God. Diba? Ang comparison. Now, fable is a form of story where they use animal characters and they always give moral lessons. So, they consider that as poetic in style because we need to see the implication of the story, just like the parable. Euphemism is using an auspicious word for an inauspicious meaning. Now, when we use a lighter term in order not to be very offensive in our words, that's what we call as euphemism. For example, the comfort room is a euphemism of toilet. Okay, it sounds dirty to some. Although if you go to Australia, they don't say comfort room; they really say toilet. It's only in America we say powder room. No? But it's a form of euphemism. So he passed away. We say he passed away is euphemism of died, right? Onomatopoeia, to make a word by imitating the sound or noise of the object. So we have beep, beep, the small jeep, jeep, beep, is creating an onomatopoeic effect in the nursery rhyme. Personification is when we give a human attribute to a non-human thing. The weeds dance with the wind. So the weeds were being personified by the word dance. Okay? A rock stood at the corner. So, what word personifies rock? Stood. Okay, so that's personification. A satire is a kind of a drama. And this was introduced by Archilokos, no, a Greek. Si Archilokos ang nag-introduce sa time. And it used funny incidents, to bring out a message, especially trying to correct a social ill in the society or in the community. But it evokes laughter. Foibles, follies, stupidities can be seen, but it is actually to ridicule a social ill. Irony is also making use of humor, although not at all times, because irony can also be satirical in a way. Irony is saying the opposite of what we mean. Klase-klase na verbal irony if it's only using words. It could be dramatic irony if it's a situation. Have you seen kaning itong best short film sa CCP kana? It's like music na how lovely is your dwelling. Kita mo na sa iyang kwan. Ang iyang background is the payatas dump site. But the lines are how lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord, mighty God, for the Lord. Looking at the film, you can see the dumping site, but people were smiling. Ang Pinoy, kung may camera, mababay, mag-il, no? O sabi, ana lang camera. They were smiling, pero they were smiling in that area where you have a lot of garbages. And they were scavengers, scavenging for things that they can get. But whenever may camera, wait, and then smile. And then, yung lines, gamit siya sa background sa kanta nga, how lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord, mighty God. And that is the effect of dramatic irony. The spectator can see the ironic situation of the characters sa movie. So, mo siya mo siya best short film, that was the CCP Culture Center of the Philippines. So that is also a form of irony. Not just you came into the room, look so how good, oh, you look gorgeous today, what happened? So that is verbal irony. Antithesis is opposition of contrast of words, like the miser robs himself. It's similar to oxymoron. Oxymoron is also contrast. Oxymoron, antithesis, and we have paradox. Antithesis, paradox, and oxymoron. Oxymoron, like his gaze were like cold fire. Cold fire, cold and fire. Or love is bittersweet. Bittersweet. So that is an example. Bittersweet is an example of an oxymoron. Paradox, it's more of, it's a statement of what life is. For example, say, in the poem of Emily Dickinson, much madness is divinest sense to a discerning eye. Madness is divine. Madness is divine. It's the message there is that if you're crazy, you become innocent. Because you are not guilty of anything. So that's why it's madness is divinest sense to a discerning mind. Pero much sense, the darkest madness. Much sense, much common sense can be madness. Kay mamanong bali at ako, maayon kayo mo, tanawa ng pork bottle mo. Much madness, much sense, much common sense is the start of madness. When you are placed in a situation where your life is threatened, telling the truth would threaten your life. Kung sa mga tell the truth ka, o mamakat na lang ka. Diba? O kung I have common sense, why would I risk my life? Mamakat na lang ko eh, yung kapitaw nila. O kung sa man, maligyan na sa inyong amiga o siya po or wala. Sa kibaw ka man na maligyan siya, wala ko eh. Things like that. Anyway, that's an example of the irony in life that can be placed in a statement of a paradox, written by Emily Dickinson. So you have, that's antithesis, opposition of contrast of words, like miser robs himself, the sound of silence. Hyperbole is Greek hyperbole, the exaggeration. You know that, no? Faith can move mountains. Exaggeration. Not to bring in power into your statement. Synecdoche is when the whole is substituted for the part. For example, I need 100 hands to work on this project. 100 hands. Instead of number of people, you say 100 hands. Or we say 2 heads are better than 1. So instead of 2 persons thinking individuals, we say 2 heads. 2 heads are better than 1. That is synecdoche. That's figures of speech. That's a figure of speech, synecdoche. Similar to synecdoche is metonymy. Metonymy, how by metonymy? Metonymy is association. For example, we say, statement na, Malacanang has signed the RH bill. No, ang Malacanang, palitin mo ng Malacanang, di ba? But it is associated with the Philippine president. So instead of saying the Philippine president, we say Malacanang, or the White House has spoken. No? So it's not really the White House, but it's the American president. So that is an example of hyperbole. You have there there's an understatement. Litotes. Litotes is the opposite of hyperbole. Is it there? It's not. Litotes or understatement. Understatement. Litotes. Litotes is L-I-T-O-T-E-S. L-I-T-O-T-E-S. Litotes. Meaning understatement. What if hyperbole is an exaggeration, then you have litotes as an understatement. Like, oh, it's not bad a musician. You need to say, he's great. They say, it's not bad a musician. He's really great. Huh? So you have, okay, so there's a poem there in Baltimore where say of all the things that of all the things in Baltimore, that's all that I can remember. That is an understatement. Okay? It's about a nigger who went to Baltimore. And then he's new to Baltimore, he was trying to find a friend. When he saw a child, an American child, looking, he looked at him and put out his tongue. Put out his tongue. And of all the things that I can remember, all the things in Baltimore, that's all that I can remember. But actually, when you say that's all that I can remember, it's an understatement of saying I can never forget it. So that is an example of what I do this. Pero you have to be quick, no? In looking at deciphering such a especially an understatement like all this is not often discussed in many homes in the classroom, right? It's more of the exaggeration. Then you have hyperbaton, featuring unusual or inverted words on hyperbaton. Very famous of doing this is E.E. Cummings. E.E. Cummings. Ang English majors, kailan ni E.E. Cummings? Ano daw ko kailan? Ano mo na saya? E.E. Cummings. His name is written this way. Diba? E. Mami.
English medium, they can know.
He writes his name this way, and in one form he wrote na hyperbaton, yan gihimogi. Yan na siya. Leave. False. Tagitagap niya ang mga letters pa. Yan. At the end, he said, lonely. This is an example of hyperbaton, where the lines or letters in the poem are so arranged to suggest meaning conveyed in the poem. Una, leaf falls, loneliness, yung letters na natagap po, no? Only one word at the end, like loneliness. That's an example of hyperbaton. Schemes featuring unusual or inverted word order, unusual presentation of words. When he wrote also about aswan, no, ang subject niya is aswan, ang words po niya pong i-arrange in such a way na create of swan ang poem. Ang poem image mo created is swan. Of course, pag lisod kay basa, dugay decipher sa words. But that's the style of E. Cummings. Hyperbaton. Then you have the allusion, an indirect reference to another work of literature or art or history. So, to Helen, for example, we have to Helen in the work of Poe, gigamit niya si psyche. There's the word of psyche or psyche. So that's an allusion. Psyche, the mention of psyche there is an allusion, alluding the description of beauty to that of Helen. So if somebody would tell, you're a Helen to my life, oh, but you should be flattered. Okay, he's using an allusion in Helen, so that's how beautiful. You're the most beautiful, you're the fairest woman in my life. You are a Helen to my life. You should be flattered. And he's using allusion in that case. Similarly, we've explained that. Anaphora is the repetition of words in the same line. So we have examples here. Some lines taken from poems. So we say, "O Rose, thou art sick. You are sick." It's a personification, no? Because the rose is somehow addressed like a human being. You are sick. Oh, my love is a red, red rose. It's a metaphor, and there is also anaphora for the repetition of red, red. Now we have a metaphor and an anaphora. Oh, my love's like a melody that sweetly sings in simile, because of the word lie. My name is Ozymandias. Look at my works, if I tell despair, nothing besides remains. It is an irony. No? An irony. Notice, nanghapog siya. My name is Ozymandias. Look at my works. Tanawa, no? Ang mga trabaho. Nothing actually remains. So, this is by Shelley Mongol. Notice quoted line, no? Look at my works. But the reality is, nothing besides remains. That is an example of an irony, a situational irony. Much madness is divinest sense. I give this as an example. It's a paradox. Oh, I will love you still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. The sands of life shall run is an association. So it is metonymy. Kita mo lang time, sana? Ano bang time? Hourglass. That is an association. Right? For as long as I am living, I shall love you. Meaning niya sa letter M. And I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 miles. though it were 10,000 miles. Hyperbole. That flies in the night in the howling storm. Howling storm is personification. Death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful. Death be not proud. Is personification, proud death, no? It's personifying death, as death be not proud. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. It is apostrophe. No, what I mentioned? Apostrophe is addressing someone who is not there. Or addressing the dead. We have there. Next, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams. Like a land of dreams, similarly. Because their words had forth no lightning. Because their words had forth no lightning. When you say forth no lightning, it means the words, what's ng lightning associated with? With power, diba? So, let's say, for their words had forth no lightning, it means the words have lost their power. So, what's happening a figure of speech? Association, metonymy. Diba, kita mo ang fourth na na-power o pag like Poseidon ba na? Kanang magdaog trident. Right, so that's association. Next. Finally, I would like to hover to see God smiling at the poem's cover. It is another hyperbole. I love thee with a depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. Exaggeration, gihapon, no? I am the master of my feet, I am the captain of my soul. Metonymy, association, gihapon, master and captain. Rest not in peace, not yet, Rizal, not yet. Apostrophe, and it's also an allusion. Allusion, it's alluding to Rizal. Alright, now so, next, I'll distributing the sample test while you take your break. How long will I break? 1 month siguro?